vast majority of the allegations that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza happened in the time that Jake Sullivan was in office. This was happening while he was in office. I don't want to say it was worse or better. I don't want to say it's gotten worse. Its situation is obviously disastrous. But how do you explain what Jake Sullivan is doing now there when you have every major international human rights organization, Israeli human rights organization, have come out and said this is a genocide? Famine has been declared in Gaza City. And he's now coming out and saying, I have been encouraging people to cut military aid to Israel.
Look, I'm glad he has that position now, but we in the media, anybody who interviews Jake Sullivan has an absolute responsibility to challenge him on exactly this point. The International Court of Justice said there was a plausible case of genocide when he was National Security Advisor and ordered Israel to stop its military offensive. The International Criminal Court convicted Benjamin Netanyahu of the war crime of starvation when he was the National Security Advisor, and Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden's administration told the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice to jump in the lake. So anybody who's going to interview Jake Sullivan on this question has to ask him how he can possibly take this position now and do the things that he did in office.
Dan, I know you were at the White House at the same time. You weren't on the National Security Council, but you were in a senior level position. What do you make of this reversal from Jake Sullivan? Is it way overdue, or do you think it's an evolution in his thinking since he's out of office? Do you have any insight on that? And where do you stand on the Biden Gaza policy in retrospect?
I think here's what's really frustrating Democrats at a high level. I think the majority of people are concerned about Israel's security, concerned about anti-Semitism, and concerned about bringing the hostages home. I don't think anyone is debating that. But when you have the highest number of child amputees per capita in Gaza, when you see the tens of thousands of children being killed, when you're seeing nowhere near as enough aid come in, and the approval rating, if you look at Democrats of what's happening, is 8%. And then you have Democratic politicians not even acknowledging it. That's where people just lose faith in elected officials that they think should be representing them and speaking their voice. And so that omission, I think, is just frustrating everyone right now.
Yeah, but what about when Biden was president and those child amputees were piling up and up and up, and Biden continued sending the aid?
Well, look, I think we're seeing now that it's clear that with regard to Israel policy, a large number of Democrats are coming out against, are coming to withhold aid, and I think that's important. I think Jake Sullivan's stance right now is the right one.
I want to talk about Cindy McCain, radical leftist Cindy McCain. We have some video of her on CNN. I'd love to.
I saw, as you can imagine, a lot of destruction. I saw a lot of very evident hunger. I had the opportunity, I will say, to meet a family that was in Deir al-Balah, and they had come from the north. I couldn't even recognize the family from when they were, the healthy pictures that they took prior to coming down, and then now what was evident in front of me.
So the question is, what is it going to take? Right, she was married to a Republican senator. I mean, what does it take for our electeds to do something?
The challenge is you have a president who doesn't view the Palestinian people as human. He views them as subhuman, right? He's putting out videos of him shirtless on the Gaza Strip, referring to people as, referring to the property as luxury resort waterfront property when so much pain and destruction has happened there. He's proposing relocating people with a digital token that doesn't even have any real value. So I'm very pessimistic, especially from our leadership in the White House, of anything changing.
Yeah, but look, I have to say, there's not a lot of evidence that Joe Biden saw Palestinians as human either, to be honest. If you look at what he actually did, as president, he never genuinely faced the suffering of Palestinians, and he never did anything to alleviate it. He continued to send the weapons again and again and again to protect Israel diplomatically, to set the stage for this. Is Trump more ghastly and more cruel? Absolutely. But sadly, I feel like when the historians look at this, they're going to see this as a bipartisan moral catastrophe, not just a Republican one.
Let me play for you something about that point. I'll get your thoughts to it. This is Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to Patrick Bet-David. He was asked about October 7th. Take a listen to this and I'll get your thoughts.
You're saying Hamas would have had the audacity, even under Trump, to have attacked, or no, they would have feared him?
Probably not, but it's hard to say with these maniacs. You can't quite tell. I think Iran would have been more careful.
The reason why we wanted to play that soundbite is to kind of connect the dots between what the Prime Minister of Israel is saying and what he did under the Biden administration. I go back to this for a second, not to relitigate it, but because I think it's important that for Americans to understand, why is it that Democratic and Republican politicians continuously get outmaneuvered by the Israeli Prime Minister? Joe Biden did everything he can to support the Israeli Prime Minister. He bear hugged him. You remember the rhetoric that we were hearing was that they were going to give him the kind of private talking, if you will, not publicly do it because it's, you know, the big brother, little brother relationship that they love to tout. But why is it ultimately that when he did stand by the Israeli Prime Minister is effectively disrespecting Joe Biden by saying, you know, under Donald Trump, they would have feared him and they would not have done that?
I don't think that everyone at the table is going to agree with me on this, but I think there is a very big difference between standing by Israel, our ally, after October 7th and making sure that they were in a place to recover from what happened and what's happening today.
Yeah.
We're in what Jake Sullivan says in that interview, if you listen to the whole thing, is that we are in a very different position today with the condition of the adversaries to Israel than we were on October 7th. Joe Biden was never putting out videos of him shirtless on the Gaza Strip. He was never mocking the Palestinian people, and I think that is a difference.
Sorry, the Israeli defense minister said on October 9th that Israel was going to cut off all food, all water, all electricity. On October 9th, we had good reason to know that Israel would wage its assault on Gaza in this way, and Joe Biden kept the weapons going.
Well, you look too at Netanyahu's office clap back at Cindy McCain after she met with him, after being on the ground. Cindy McCain is one of very few Americans, very few international observers who have actually been allowed in Gaza. And I wish we could have run more of her interviews from this morning, speaking unsparingly about the famine that's happened, a report which she gave to Netanyahu and to his office, and they disputed in the aftermath. That's John McCain's widow, that they did that to.
But they continue to do that to everybody. I mean, I mean, every organization. Yeah. And this is why I kind of keep coming back to the idea of the politics of it in this country. I'm constantly baffled by how American politicians look at Netanyahu, who undermined the Iran nuclear agreement, who undermined Joe Biden himself in so many ways politically in the run-up to the election back in 2020. And yet Democrats and Republicans still stand by this policy that is just bad politics.
Right. Well, and it showcases their absolute weakness.
Yes,
too,
right.
in the face of Netanyahu strong-arming them.
Netanyahu is, you know...
Schumer called for Netanyahu to step aside. What did Schumer do when Netanyahu came to this country?
Because it's not really about Netanyahu, right? It's about that we have a corrupt political system in many different ways, right? With pharmaceutical companies, with oil companies, with all kinds of companies that lead all kinds of interests that lead the Democratic Party to go contrary to its stated values. And this is the same story. Right. Many of these politicians are getting very large amounts of money from pro-Israel donors, and it is leading them to act in ways that are fundamentally at odds with their stated values.
And when a politician finally emerges who can speak with some clarity about what he actually does believe when it comes to genocide and famine in Gaza, like Zoran Mandami, he's hugely, hugely controversial and maligned among the Democratic
Party.
But
also popular among voters.
Among the voters that the Democrats actually want to win and need to win. So
Dan and
we're going to have to leave it at that, guys.
Thanks so much for being with us.